All right. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us today with the Suffer Well season. So, this is episode one, patience, developing patience. During the summer, towards the end of the summer, this came to my idea. God dropped it in my spirit for suffer well, that phrase. And I wasn't sure exactly like what he meant by that. So then during my prayer and devotion time, he shared with me that suffering well means that no matter what hardships you are experiencing in the midst of a transition season, you can still experience hope, you can experience faith, you can still experience grace and love during a time period of transition. Oftentimes, when we are in a season of transition, whether it is that you are transitioning careers, you're shifting from um, a long term relationship to singleness, or you're transitioning from being married to divorce, whatever circumstance, situation that you may be in during a season of transition, we feel everything other than confidence, right? So for today, we're going to be talking about patience. And for episode one, we wanted this to be the first episode. I wanted our guest speaker, Jakisha, to come on. I met her a few years ago. We met through a Facebook group, and it was called Minority Christian Woman Entrepreneur Facebook group. She had posted during the pandemic. She was looking for guest speakers to be on her podcast. Okay. And I was one of her guest speakers, and that was in 2021. And then in 2022, she had her first virtual encouragement conference, and I was the guest speaker for her encouragement conference. So I'm so glad that she has been able to join us today. So let's welcome Jarkisha. Thank you so much, Jarkisha, for being here. Um, Tell us a little bit about you and about your journey of becoming a mental health first aid instructor and speaker.
Yes, hi everybody. I am Jarkeisha. I am of Chop with Jam. Chop stands for check on your people. I'm always encouraging people to check on your people and also telling people to let people know that they need help also. If you go ever follow me, everything says Chop with Jam. Jam Mart is my initials. And Chop, we're not chopping anybody up. We are, like I said, checking on our people. But I became about little miss people know I love to talk, and I've been talking ever since my mom said I hadn't hushed ever since I started learning how to talk. And so I've been speaking and encouraging people and not realizing like what I was doing during these times, even at a young age. But I am stepping more into being a speaker than because I realized when I was reflecting recently, I'm like, I've been speaking on many different places. Like people have called me, like even when I was in middle school, of all things, one of the my teachers asked me to do the Martin Luther King speech, and I was like, I'm not a boy, and I thought it in that way. But anyways, I thought back to that far and just how I just relate and talk to people, and I'm very much of a talker. So, but with mental health, that came with it goes with me dealing with my own mental health issues, but really what struck me to want to get more into it as well is when me having mental health challenges, I should say, is I lost my father to death by suicide. It's been 4 years as of December the 11th, and my father was a pastor. And so it made me want to advocate more for people, especially in the faith-based community, to put more out there about mental health because we don't often talk about it a lot. We always kind of push it off and say, okay, just go pray it away and do all these things. But I know that my heart is always one. Y'all, I probably overshare. So even while we're talking today, I'll probably tell you a little bit more. But I want people to relate. And I think about how I want somebody to come to me and to talk to me. So that's how I got more into speaking. It's my voice. Like I love to talk. And I work in a lab. And most people like, girl, you work in a lab. They like, you got way too much personality to be working behind four walls. That's what my stepmom used to tell me all the time when I first started working in the lab. And most people in the lab will tell you I'm the one that's walking around bubbly, telling everybody good morning and all these things. And what I do for my job is By day. It's very important job. I work under a pathologist, and we look at cells to see if they're normal, abnormal, or cancerous. So I see cancer a couple times out of the week. In our primary specimen, we actually look at our pap smears, but we also look at any fine needle aspiration outside of the body. So we see a lot more like lungs and thyroids and things like that, and of course pap smears. But that's why I say I'm supposed to be like really focused sitting in a microscope working, but my a lot of times I'm like, I got to move. And I'll go see people and I go on my rounds. So that's kind of I got more into like mental health because I always ask people like, "How are you doing?" And I start seeing the effect of that of asking people, "How are you doing?" And then I also just paying attention to what people talk about, and that made me see how important that is with mental health. And then now me being in the season we'll talk about is helping me to be more open to like asking for help is okay, and seeing the importance of checking on your people.
And I really like how you just mentioned as far as like checking in on people, that concept that you that was birthed out of mental health, because when you're asking other people like how are they doing, they're oftentimes I notice that like people don't really answer. You know what I mean? When you ask them like how are they doing, but when somebody like genuinely asks them, it gives them a moment to know that there's people out there that actually care about what it is that you're doing. So I just want to say thank you so much for you stepping into your calling as well. And I want to ask you, since our topic is on patience, patience is not something that people naturally can do. It can be very difficult when you're in a season of transition and you want to do something, but it's not necessarily happening in your timeline, right? And oftentimes, like I would have to ask God, like, okay, do you want me to move, or do you want me to be still? Like, let me know, God, like what it is that you want me to do in the season of transition. So my next question that I want to ask you is, um, what does it mean about what does patience mean for you, and why is it important to trust God's timing in a season of transition or in waiting?
I'm just gonna be honest with you all. Sometimes patience, and then many of you can relate to this. We don't like to be patient. We don't like to be patient with anything most of the time, especially if it's something you really want. But think about people get impatient in lines, people get impatient in traffic. People are like, we're sad. The reality is now we're in the microwave society where nobody wants to be patient. We want it now, we want it right now. We don't want to wait for it. We don't want to work for it. We're like, I want all these things right now in this moment. I want all these, to happen now. So I'm not gonna lie, there are some things that I can be impatient about, meaning like waiting on something like God, I asked you for something and trying to wait. But one thing I have learned, and most of us have learned, what happens when we try to do things on our own accord. When you try to do things on your own accord and not being patient and letting God lead and guide you, most of the time things don't work out. Then you get left and you're disappointed, then you're mad, then you're upset, and you're like, oh my goodness. So I have learned to just, even though you don't like it, to just be patient and trust God. Ask him the questions and really wait to hear back from him. Because a lot of times when we do things out of impulse, or we do things and not truly wait for God to answer, then we set ourselves back. And then later we'll be like, oh well, Lord, if I known it was gonna be this easy, I would have waited. But we most of the time don't want to wait. Like for instance, some people have a timeline, or we have a schedule, and we're like, I want to get these things done at this time and in this part of my life and all these things. And then we get upset when things don't go the way that we thought they should go. I used to say I wanted to be married by the time I was 25. That didn't happen that way in my life. I used to say I want to have my kids and be married, and if I was like, if I didn't have kids by the time I was 30, I would, or 35, I think, I was like, I'm not gonna have any. But that wasn't how God's timetable worked out. I always had it, we always have in our mind what we want, but we have to be patient and say, okay, God, I really don't want to be in the spot that I'm in right now. What are you wanting me to do next? Where you wanting me to move next? And we always find out later, like they say, hindsight is 2020, when we actually are patient and say, okay, God, I know that you will supply all my needs, but Lord, I need, to have an answer like, and God is like, but my timing is not your time, and my plans are not your plans. My ways are not your way. So we have to wait for God to step in and really trust him. It becomes a matter of trust. Patience can show how much we really truly trust God, because a lot of times we are impatient and we'll be like, I'm gonna do what I want to do because I want to do it. And as you heard what I said, I was the main thing, right? It's not say, God, what are we gonna do? Or God, what do you want me to do? And so I just know in my time of being impatient and trying to rush, that means in a possibility, for instance, if you're trying, if you're dating or whatever, you might end up with somebody you like, no, I shouldn't even been in that situation for that long. And even everybody else can see it, but you be like, no, but I'm gonna wait. They gonna change. This is gonna happen. It's like, no, that's not necessarily. Or even so, if you're in a job and God didn't tell you to move, and you're like, no, did I hear God really well? Or you go and find another job, and God didn't tell you to go find another job. He told you to stay there because He had plans for you to do there. So I just know it avoids disappointment, because if we do things on our own accord, we end up being disappointed, or man disappoints us, and then we get mad at God because we're like, well, Lord, I asked for this and did this, and then it came and I thought this was this, and I thought, but God be like, no, I didn't tell you to do any of that. You did that on your own. So that's what I'm learning more about being patient, is just trusting the process and really trusting God to lead and guide what your next steps are and what you are doing. Because one, I have one thing I do now to really make sure that I'm being patient is I check my motives for things. Like, why am I doing this? What do I trying to get? Am I doing this for selfish gain or selfish ambition? Why am I doing this? Or am I doing this because of the person that's name is tied to it? When you're doing certain things, or like even conversations you have, like, okay, should I say this? If I say this, why am I saying this? Am I trying to get something out of this? Because like people, like one of my best friends, she know now, I'll be checking myself, and I said people probably laugh. I'll be like, why am I asking this? What am I trying to get? Like, if I start a conversation with somebody, am I trying to make something more of this and get my own gains from it? Or am I really like, God, did you lead me, guide me here to do it? So sometimes I won't even say certain things or do certain things because if I say my motives weren't in the right place. So that goes with also being patient, like checking your motives of why you're doing something. Is it because you want the status quo and where everybody else have the name and the title? Or are you wanting to trust God along the process and let God tie you to the right people that He wants you to be tied to?
Hmm. That was so amazing what you just shared, as far as like when it comes to trusting God in the process, and really when it comes to the timeline, because I can relate to what you just shared. You know what I mean? I think all of us that are on the call today, we have like a certain timeline of things that we want to accomplish. But what do we do when things don't happen in our timeline? Majority of my anxiety that I experienced during my transition season was like, God, things are not happening the way that I said it. You know what I mean? I have things on my vision board of things I'm going to accomplish during my timeline, because God's timeline is the best timeline, right? If He has me to wait a little longer, blessings going to be. You know what I mean? And oftentimes when
Mm-hmm.
I was during my journey, I would hear people say, don't rush God, don't rush God's plan. But I'm like, how can I rush if it's already taken me 5, 6 years? How can I rush God's plan? You know what I mean? I just felt like, what do you mean I'm rushing? I'm waiting. You know what I mean? But I think what it was is that like we have to learn more about how to um, how to just be how to be patient, right? How to develop patience, because it is a spiritual fruit, and it's something that has to be developed, but then you continue to strengthen it as you go. Okay. And I loved how you said that it will keep you from being disappointed. And that was actually one of my questions that I wanted to ask you is um, how do you manage your emotions when you're in a season of waiting? Like, are there any things that you can do, or do you have any like self-talk that you say to yourself to help you cultivate more peace and calm when you're in a space where you're like, oh, I'm a little bit jittery, I need to be peaceful? peaceful? What are some things that you say to yourself to help you?
Well, some of the things I'm very transparent. So one of the things is I feel all the emotions. I don't try to, I get upset if I need to in the moment. If I need to cry in the moment, I cry. And it's just one of those just saying, okay, I know this is not happening how I want it to be. And, really just reeling yourself back in to say, okay, God, I got to trust you. I got to stop trying to make things happen on my time and on my accord and really trust you. And just really getting back to that, or even in the midst of things you're going through, say, God, what is the lesson you're trying to teach me during this season that I'm going through? Because He could be teaching you patience, to be more patient. And sometimes we have to be mindful with, like they say, what you pray for and ask for, because if you ask for patience, He's going to give you patience. And it could be in the form of being more patient with your child, being more patient with somebody that gets on your nerves, different things that God will be like, okay, I just need you to learn patience, be okay with waiting. Things are going to happen. It's going to be okay. Or even just saying in that moment, like, okay, it's going to be okay. It don't have to happen right now. I don't have to do it today. When it comes to different tasks and different things, that's one thing I find myself doing right now. Like, I'm in the season of my season right now. Transition is learning how to be. Now I'm a widow. After losing my husband recently, so now I'm trying to really have God is showing me more in this season. One, to really rely on community, but two, also to truly trust Him and that He's gonna take care and that He's gonna provide and that I have your back. I'm normally always the one that's trying to take care of everybody else. And yes, y'all, I'm still guilty of doing that. But at the same time, letting other people help me, which is kind of hard, but saying, okay, God, even when it comes to my daughter, I had to say, God, thank you for lending her to me and allow me to be her parent. I had to remind myself she's still your child. I'm your child too, and she's your child. But God, come on, and there's no instruction manual. So in that time, in this season of transition, like letting other people come in and truly help you and not thinking about they're trying to do anything else, but really letting people help. And in those times when you need to vent, if you need to vent and get it out, that's the thing that has helped too. Like they say, God can take it all. He wants you to come to Him raw and how you're feeling and what you're going. I have been like that with God and be like, Lord, I don't like none of this. I didn't ask for any of this. But at the same time, one, I'm learning more, and what He's teaching me is to stay more in the present and stop going, don't be too far back in the past, and don't be trying to go too far into the future, because the future is not guaranteed to any of us. Only thing we have is right now in this moment, in this time. And that's been the main thing that's been helping me, is like focus on today. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about yesterday. And that's hard. Think about it. It's really hard because you like, I want to do, and I got this idea. And people always ask you, what's your plan? What you want to be when you grow up, when you were little, right? Or they'll ask you, what's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? What's your 30-year plan? And you like, hold on, what you mean? I'm just trying to enjoy the day and be, if you're a kid, you're like, I'm just trying to stay being a kid. And if you're even an adult, you're like, hold on, people will tell you if you have kids, they'll be like, oh, before you know it, they're going to be in college. I'll be like, hold on, can y'all just slow down? Can we just at least go to high school then before we go to college? Like, I know if you blink and kids grow up, but at the same time, we got to embrace more of the present. That's something we don't do. We don't embrace more the present, even though it hurts in the midst of what you're going through. Even with me in this grievance mourning season, I have to allow myself to feel all the emotions and feel all the things, because in other times I haven't. So I have to be like, don't rush this. Don't worry about what's going to happen next and how things are going to be. And just say, okay, God, I got to surrender it all to you in this period of transition, in this period of the waiting, because I don't know I don't know the unknown. And I'm not supposed to know the unknown. God don't want us to know everything all at one time. He wants us to be patient and allow Him to show us and reveal to us things in His timing. And most people don't think about it. If, like they say, if He gave us everything all at one time, we wouldn't appreciate it, because it would be overwhelming. We were like, oh my goodness, I didn't know all of this. And then you wouldn't truly appreciate it. So we have to trust the process and really go through it and say, okay, God, I don't like this, but I'm going to trust you. So that's the main thing I'm really going through, even in this season, just saying, God, I really am going to trust you in what you're calling me to do, and making sure I don't step out and do something too far ahead of what God is telling me to do.
That is so amazing what you just shared, because oftentimes, like you just mentioned, we do think about the past. We do think about so far ahead in the future. You know what I mean? But it's hard to be in the present and for us to feel all that we feel. oftentimes we do things to keep our minds off of it, whether it's staying busy, whether it's doing something like developing a not so healthy habits of drinking, smoking, anything to take your mind off of like what you're feeling, because it's a lot of work to sit with your emotions, but then being in the community, but in the right community of people that can love on you and cover you and let you know that everything is going to be all right. Because that could be hard, because I've learned on my journey the enemy wants you to feel isolated. The enemy wants you to feel alone. The enemy wants you to
Mhm.
feel like nobody understands what you're going through. You know what I mean? And I've learned that when the enemy does that, it's because he wants you to feel that way. But God reminds
Mhm.
us, whether it's through your devotional time, your prayer time, or even through somebody else, that you are loved. You know what I mean? That you have that community and not to get ahead of wherever He's taking you. Things happen in our lives that we didn't plan for, we didn't prepare for. It's hard to prepare for things of the unknown, but during those moments of redirection, God is showing us through the midst of that hardship that even if we don't know what's going to happen, that trust is so important, right? Because it's like, God, I give it to you. I surrender all to you. Even though I am
Mhm.
scared, even though I am disappointed and frustrated, I know that He has a plan, even if I don't understand. And then He will reveal it later on. Like, okay, um, there's a song that is very popular in church. It's like, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And when I was in my season of transition, the beginning stages, I literally thought, okay, let me go to sleep and then joy will come in the next morning. And I realized, like, no, that's not it. Joy comes when you're in a space of peace. Joy comes when you're in a space of, what, God, it's uncertain, but I'm going to trust you. You know what I mean? No matter what. And being present has to be practice. It's a practice. Being patient is a practice also. It's not just being patient today and then tomorrow it's like we're going back to being impatient, right? Giving yourself grace. It is a practice. I loved how you gave different examples, like with your child. Your child may be doing something that may get on your nerve, and they can, tick our nerves, especially if we're in a space when we're not available to give them our undivided attention, right? So it's like, okay, how as we adults are learning patience, that's something that we can also teach our child, as we continue to learn depending on the situation. So this is really a great conversation that we're having today. And my next question is, and I feel like you kind of answered this question, but if you can speak a little bit about it, what do you think God is teaching you on this journey? Whether now or in the past, what do you think God is teaching you on the journey?
Well, for one, since my husband died unexpectedly, and I think about that day quite often, like I've lost a lot of people close to me. I'm sorry, y'all, some in my eye, but I've lost a lot of people close to me, like really close to me. And I go back and I think about where God has brought me from to where I am now in these seasons. Like we don't think about how you're getting prepared for things a lot of times. And so when you go back and be like, oh, you were preparing us for these moments when things didn't happen anymore. We don't, instead of us, so when it happens, you don't be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe, this happened. No, it wasn't. I didn't know my husband's going to die. And this is different because my late husband died in my house and everything was fine. It was a regular day. And then he was gone by that evening into, well, the next morning, basically at like 12:19 the next morning. And so it's different because it was like, I'm crying out to God, like, please don't take him. And he was gone. Like, I mean, they came and worked on him, sure enough, but it showed me, even in the midst of that, my child was encouraging me and trying to keep us calm, even though later she was like, I just didn't want y'all to freak out. But still, in this time, it's showing me that you cherish every day. Even though I've lost many people, I don't have any of my grandparents anymore. I don't have a lady that was like my grandma that babysat me. I lost my father, like how I lost him, and that birthed things throughout that. And now how I have lost my husband, unexpectedly, like y'all, he was 47 years old. I was
Mm,
37 at the time, but now I'm 38. So that happened all really quickly, and you realize how many other people become widows so fast. Like you just never expected that to happen. It's like your life changed in the instant. So you like, what's now? What's next? What are we gonna do? You went from having somebody with you all the time to now you're like, I don't have that person anymore. It's not like sometimes you feel like they're just gone on vacation, but at the same time it's like, no, they're not coming back. Or in the case of some people who've gone through a divorce, that person's still there, you can see them. In this case, no, he's gone. He But the reminder is that you cherish every day. I try to tell people to take each day and cherish each day that you do have, because one, like I said, tomorrow ain't promised. The rest of today is not. It's like I even did a talk recently, like, what if today was your base, in a sense, like cherish today, because what if today was your last day? What if your day, like, what did you do? We make so many plans about what to do and how I want to do. And it's like, no, if it's, and also, even though after learning more about this, even through losing many people close to me, one of the things is that God is showing that do things while you can do them. Don't wait till later to do them. Meaning, like, I tell people, if you love somebody, tell them you love them. Don't wait to be like, oh, well, I'll tell them tomorrow or I'll tell them another. I know that may be a little extreme, but still, like, if it's something you can do today that's one, not going to be illegal, I always put that out there, and one that's not going to disturb your peace or, bother, then take that time to do that today. Don't keep waiting till the next day to say, I'm going to do it, because the next day may not come. Like I said, we're supposed to look somewhat into the future, but really just saying, taking the moments to embrace and enjoy those things. And I'm not gonna lie, it's hard. Like, even when somebody hurts your feelings in the middle of one day, I'm not gonna lie and say you're gonna just forget them instantly like that, and say, okay, I forgive you today and we're gonna be cool tomorrow if we live to see it. My husband used to get upset with me, not upset, but I used to always tell him, okay, if Lord willing, and I always say that all the time, if the Lord's will. He was like, yeah, but you're gonna make it. You're gonna be here tomorrow. You're gonna be all right. I was like, okay, you say so. And when I'm leaving the house, I see you later, if the Lord will. You gonna be back. You coming back. And he was like, yeah, but you're not. I looked at it in the sense of like, well, I may not come back, but his intentions was, yeah, but you don't just look at it so negatively or all anything, like I may not come back, some bad may happen. And then here it is in this instance, when he left, it's like now he will understand. I mean, I know he's gone and he's at peace, but it's like, but that shows the example of how you have to say certain things today, because tomorrow is not guaranteed. So in this, God is just showing me, as much as I stress or worry about different things or even get anxious about different things, it's like sometimes that time may not come that you get to say the things that you need to say, to have conversations that you need to have, to do things that you need to do. And I even find myself sometimes like, okay, let me go ahead and stop right now and do this, versus me putting this off until tomorrow to say I'll do it till tomorrow, or at least get some set on. Now, if you tired, I'm not telling nobody to burn out to do anything. This is not what I'm saying. I'm telling you to take that moment to embrace what you can do. See what capacity you still have left within you to do it. But don't go get burned out, because that's not what I'm saying, and that ain't what God wants you to do either. So in this, he's just showing me like more and more to, just like I said, cherish the moments, cherish the days, cherish the second. As my mom used to say, take it moment by moment, day by day, second by second, breath by breath. Like I tell people, when you wake up in the morning, thank God for another day. When you get in your car, ask for traveling grace and mercy. When you get to your destination, thank God again. When you get home, thank God again. When you go to bed, thank God that He allowed you to see another day. He allowed you to make it through that day, because you won't see that day ever again. So it's just really embracing the now and not worrying so much about the later.
Hmm. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm deeply sorry for your loss. Um, but one thing that multiple things that I took from what you just shared, but it's so important to cherish the moment. I think we do take that for granted.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Oh, I'll just say it, call them tomorrow or next week or next month. And then before you know it, it's too late. And we never think about that. You know what I mean? About that. And
Hmm.
it's an uncomfortable thing to do. I remember this is recently, within the last few months. My mom is like, "We need to start planning for my funeral," and she's not sick or anything like that. And I was like, "Mom, we're not going to talk about that right now." You know what I mean? And she's like, "You just never know. I'm getting
Hmm.
older, and you just never know that when her last breath may be when our last breath will be." You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
it's definitely important to cherish that moment. And that's a work in progress for me also, because when somebody comes to my mind, somebody I haven't talked to in months or even years, I'm like, why would I just call that person out the blue? But I know God is working on me to just pray for them and then reach out to them, because you just never know what somebody is going through. So just having that person just call and, like you said, chop it up, check on them. They're probably, in a space where it's like, wow, I'm so glad you called me today. You know what I mean? And definitely it's important to cherish that moment with your loved ones at all times. Um, what do you feel is the biggest challenges when it comes to trying to be patient? What are some of the biggest challenges? Or do you feel like you can be patient with others or impatient with others? Like, I know, for example, let me give an example. Like, sometimes you may be a little bit more patient when it comes to your children, but impatient when it comes to your coworkers. So when is it a time where you feel like being patient is really challenging for you?
Patience could just be challenging depending on what you're going through in your life. Because, like they said, the ones we tend to hurt the most are the ones we're the closest to. So you really would take more things out on your family and your friends than you would on your coworkers. Because even though it's your coworker might be getting on your nerves, but you're not going to do that at your job. You will basically end up possibly they say leave, don't bring work home, but that sometimes happens where you're going through different things. And that even goes through when people are exhibiting or going through things at their job, or kids are going through and exhibiting things at school. People don't realize, like, we're all fighting some kind of battle. We're all going through some kind of internal battle. We may not just be talking about it, but a lot of times, depending on how deep and what things are going on in your life, especially most of us as women. I mean, I know what I'm about to say. Men will be like, yeah, I understand this. But a lot of times our emotions are higher during certain times of our menstrual cycle. So they be like, they know when things are happening, things are coming, because we can be a little more moody, a little more snappy, and all these things. So it could be with a friend, a spouse, or whomever it is. And somebody be like, what's wrong with you? You all cranky and moody and different things. And sometimes those things happen and you're impatient. And then if that's out of your character, people will start asking, like, what's going on? You okay? They will start check something. Well, I would say you should check on people when they're starting to act more out of character than what they usually would be. So if somebody all of a sudden is just really erratic and all these things, and you're like, hold on now, you normally the cool, calm, collected one. What's going on with you? Like, who, made you upset? And some people wake up mad, y'all. So they wake up already impatient. And I'm like, they look at me like, what's wrong with her? She too happy. It's too early in the morning. And I'm like, what I'm mad for? Ain't nobody made me mad. Like, why would I wake up and already be ready to attack? Unless you fighting in your sleep, somebody in your sleep, then we need to definitely be doing some more praying. But at the same time, it's like, patience is not the easiest thing. Like I said, depending on things that you want. Like, when I'm really determined and want something and I want it right now, and I'm like fighting hard for it and it's not happening, then I get impatient. Or sometimes I get impatient with my child, especially if you have to repeatedly keep saying do something and she don't do it and you're not listening. I'm like, you're not listening to me. Or even when you feel like you're misunderstood and nobody's understanding what you're going through or who you're, what's happening, and when you're talking, because sometimes I can feel like I'm misunderstood, and I be like, I feel like I'm speaking Chinese because nobody act like they understand what I'm saying, or they think I said something totally different than what I'm saying. But it's one of those things that you can become very impatient, especially, like, think about people who've been battling infertility and they were trying to have a child. Some of them, that's a process of, I really have to trust God. And in these moments, or either I have to just say, okay, God, this may not be what you call for me to have. Or somebody who's been waiting for months or years for a job. I know this may sound extreme, but there's somebody I knew that was waiting a while for a job and just feels like I'm not helping, I'm not doing. So they're growing impatient and they want to step out and do stuff on their own. And it's like, no, God's going to provide, God's going to work it out. Or for instance, say if you've been waiting on a promotion for a long time and you're like, why I keep getting passed over, that can make you become impatient because you're like, well, why is everybody else getting it? I'm here too. I'm working just as hard as them. So it's many different situations we can become impatient. And I think it's based upon how bad we want something. And it's like I said, it's our own flesh wanting it. And when we want it now. And like I said, it comes also from being in this microwave society of, I want it right now. I don't want to wait till tomorrow. I don't want to wait till next week. I want it right now. Think about little kids. And I know mostly anybody who's a teacher or whatever, if you're a parent, auntie, uncle, whatever, you can relate to this. When they throw a full on tantrum, because they can't get what they want because they want it right now, and you told them no, or you told them like, and even that we as adults do the same exact thing when God is like no, or He tells us maybe. What do? We get impatient and be like, you know what, God, I'm gonna go do it myself. I'm gonna go do it, and then God be like, okay, you go ahead. You go ahead. You'll be back, but go ahead. And so we'll go out there and do what? And a lot of times the consequences, they hurt, right? Because we have been impatient with God, our
Yeah.
Father, our Heavenly Father, and He got it all. But we'll still be like, well, Lord, you know what? I'm still gonna go out here. I know, Lord, I shouldn't, but I'm about to, because you ain't moving fast enough. And then what happens? You get in a relationship you shouldn't be in. You go to a job you shouldn't be working at, and you stressed out all the time. Like you're doing all the things. Like yes, like she said with Elizabeth and Abraham and with Hagar, what did he do? They stepped out and said, well, we're gonna help God out. We get so impatient. I'm gonna help God out. I'm gonna just throw you in there too and let this happen. And then in the end, when somebody's resentful to you, you're like, hold on, why is this? Now you want to get rid of that person because that person stepped in and tried to do. But that's the thing, y'all. We be trying to help God. We get so impatient. And it ain't even have to be your family, it don't have to be your coworkers. We get impatient with God because God
Mm,
ain't moving on our timeline.
yeah.
Because we're like, and then we get angry with him when things don't work out because we got impatient with him. That's the best example I get. It's not even so much about being the people here on earth. We get mad at God because God ain't moving fast enough and we get impatient and we step out before we're supposed to step out and do things. We reveal things before we're supposed to reveal things. We do things before we're supposed to do it. And then we get mad and get disappointed and then we blame it on him and he's like, no, because I didn't tell you to go do it. So that's all I can say. I know sometimes I've gotten impatient and be like, okay, just forget it. I don't even matter. Like, I mean, just one example when we were trying to have our child, it was like, okay, this ain't about to happen. Let's just wait the next year. And my husband, it was like, be funny, she already pregnant. I didn't know it at the time, but I was already pregnant. Didn't know it, but I just felt like it wasn't moving. It wasn't happening when I wanted it to happen because I was like, I want to have it right now. I wanted to be here and now, and it's like no, but God worked all things out at the right time because His time is better than ours, y'all. His ways are better than ours, even though we don't want to believe them because we're fleshly and we let the enemy get into our head. We start going out there and doing everything that we want to do because we're like, well, this ain't moving fast enough, so I'm gonna go make this happen, and then you be stuck in things and doing things that you shouldn't be a part of or you end up opening up a whole bigger problem than you had in the beginning. So my biggest thing is like one, we get more impatient with our heavenly Father than we sometimes even do with each other with things because things are not moving. And we have to understand all of us are moving, going at a race and a pace at a different time, even in your business. If you're a business owner, you may leave your job sooner than you're supposed to leave. You're supposed to stay there even longer, but you left sooner than you're like, well, why I'm not making this money that I thought I would make? Or even if God tells you to move and you move, you still be like, hold on, Lord, where the money? You told me to leave. What's happening? We don't realize even with our businesses, we can grow impatient in that and we have to wait and not spend so much and go into things and have to like work it to get to where it needs to be or where God wants it to be. I keep saying God, y'all, because in the end, it's how He wants it to be. We want to be, you can't get here and say, time you become big, get your business, you're like, I'm gonna be a millionaire in like 30 days. No, that's a lie. Unless something just miraculously happens, we have to really just stop and be patient and say, okay, God, I'm gonna trust you. Yes, it's gonna be hard. Yes, I may grow impatient, but even in the midst of you feeling your impatience come, we have to remind ourselves that what the fruits of the spirits are. And we have to remind ourselves that God, that your ways are better than mine. And you have plans for me to prosper, for hope and a future. And like you said, take the examples from the Bible when people rushed and did things before they were supposed to do them and what happened with them. I know most of us in our mind at that moment are not going to think that we're not, but that's why you surround yourself with godly friends and godly community and people that you can talk to and say, hey, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm going through. And they'll pray for you and they'll even give you voice of reason and say, no, you don't need to do this, you need to wait. So that's why when I'm all about community, I'm all about checking on people because y'all, we all are fighting some kind of battle. We're all, like I said, going through something, but at that time, getting really to know how somebody is truly feeling and doing. Because when things start happening, we start being like, okay, I didn't even know they were feeling that way. It's like, no. That's why we got to have more community and more communication. And yes, we're not going to like everything that somebody says or somebody does, but at the main thing is like listening to God and letting God lead and guide us.
Hmm. Wow, when I could just say thank you, you are talking to me right now. Okay, I don't know about the ladies that's on the call right now, but you are talking to me because I loved how you just mentioned that like we can get upset with people, our friends, our families, the humans, but about God. You know what I mean? Like that was me. God and I were beefing because things were literally not happening on my timeline. You know what I mean? But I'm continuing to trust him. You even mentioned different examples about, getting pregnant or, starting a family or, for a business entrepreneur. It takes a lot of courage to come up and show up, even if you don't want to, even if you don't have all the clarity for what God is telling you to do, but you continue to show up, and that's something that God is telling me, like, okay, it's okay. I've been on this journey for a while, but there's something that He is trying to do in that season of being patient. Like you said, it is a spiritual fruit. We don't like it, it's uncomfortable, but there's something that's growing within us. It could be more peace, it could be more calmness, and I'm noticing that, like, when things are not happening the way I want to, I have to pause and reflect. Okay, God, you have your way. Okay, it's out of my control. And earlier in the conversation, you mentioned as far as but on my journey lately, I've been realizing that, like, okay, I'm moving out of self-reliance, relying on myself, and leaning more into what God is telling me to do. You know what I mean? And when there's so much like chaos going on around me, I can't hear Him clearly. But when I'm in a place
Mm-hmm.
of like sitting there, okay, God, what is it that you want me to do? And it may not come right away, but sitting in that no, nobody wants to be told no. You know what I mean? But it is teaching us that skill of just being patient. It's hard for children and it's even hard for adults, but there is something greater that's going to come after that. You know what I mean? So it's like you're waiting for that new job or you're waiting for that promotion, and you're seeing other people that's been at the job that's less qualified for you. Okay, I don't know who I'm speaking to, but it just dropped in my spirit. Like other people that's less qualified, but guess what? They probably not gonna stay at that job long enough. You know what I mean? To even do that work. But then God may place you in something that's even bigger and better for a position that you didn't even apply for, but somebody recommended that that's your position and you got it, and now it's like, oh, okay. So He has the bigger plan, but often now I'm like, okay, God, you know what's ahead of me. I don't know in the unknown, but I just know that if I continue to just be still and listen to you and surround myself with community and remind myself that it's going to be okay, and Takesha, as we get ready to close, I want to ask you this question. How has your journey inspired you on your purpose? How has it inspired you to keep going?
Um, I'm not gonna lie, at one point, even more recently, but even with the loss of my husband, he always was very supportive of me and my mission, like checking on your people and doing that. Even me doing my mental health first aid trainings, he was always one that, pushed that and would watch my daughter. And if I had an idea, I said, "Hey, I want to try this," and he would be like, "Okay, how much it costs? Let's see, we make, could do it." He was like, "Okay, go for it," because he knew like what I needed, even with me on my journey. Like, say if I start getting real cranky and different things, he'd be like, you need to go to church, especially if I hadn't been in person. And he'd be like, you need to go, because he knew how important that was to me. Because when I came back, I was refreshed, I was filled, and I had let go of a lot. Because most time I probably done boo-hooed it out in church, but he knew that how important that was to me. But not only that, even in the midst of all the things that are happening, it's pushing me more into my calling and more into my purpose, because I'm all about talking about mental health and even talking more about grief now as well, and talking about it in the midst of it, not waiting till I've gotten through it. I'm talking about it in the midst of it. Like I told people, no, I might not get on there boohoo crying and stuff. And yes, it does hurt. And yes, all I have now is the memories. And yes, I will cry when I need to cry. And when I'm talking to God, and like people are there, and like I said, really having community and people to rely on. But it's been helping me to say, okay, showing me more like, okay, God, this is what I need to do. Because when he died, I felt like I didn't have to pursue the dreams that I had anymore. Meaning, like, because I wanted to be back able to be closer to help him and do things like that. Because he had a stroke back in June of 2020, but it was more cognitive. But being able to just be more present and not have to rely so much on others to help and do things. And so now God has shown me, he gave me in the beginning of the year a couple words, but the main word, two words he gave me was trust. That's two. It's four of them he gave me that later, but he gave me trust and community. He also gave me renew and restoration. So if you could think about, yes, I lost something, but he's renewing and restoring me to a place that God needs me to be. God is also having me to trust him during this process, and also the community. I didn't understand when he gave me community. I thought I needed to go build community, not that I needed community to help me get through the season that I'm going through. Not seeing that he's elevating more of my voice and having me to come out and speak and use my voice, because that's part of my calling. I love encouraging people. That's just me and my heart, no matter what I'm going through. Even if I don't feel like it, I'm gonna make you laugh. We're gonna smile. We're gonna do something that day. Even if I'm feeling like, as I say, poo poo, that's the cute way, but feeling like crap, basically, I still want to encourage other people because it's just my heart and how I am. And I'm learning more about self loving myself the way that he made my heart to be, regardless of what anybody else says. And that's not always the easiest thing, because that's one thing, I'm good at beating up my own self. 95% of the time, I'm beating up myself or something. So in this time, he's showing me more about loving myself, being there and letting other people help, meaning like letting them know I need help and asking for help is okay. And really living out the movement that I have of checking on your people. Because I tell people, not only if you just letting you check on other people, let other people know that you need help too. Nobody can't help you if they don't know that you need help. So I've been having to be real transparent, even though I'm already, and just be like asking more for help, because I got called out on it recently. Like, yeah, we be asking you to do anything, but you'll be quick to say, no, I'm good, I'm okay. And it's hard when you're always the one that's normally checking on everybody else. So it's kind of hard to let somebody else come in. So he's showing me to let go of pride and
Mm.
let other people come in and truly be there for me. Just like when recently, a couple of days ago, I really wanted to quit my whole business, calling, movement, ministry, all of it. And I sent a text out, and within minutes of sending it, everybody like, no, you're not. No, what didn't happen? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? They will all start checking on me. And even one, my baby's godfather had told me if I hadn't talked to him within 24 hours, he was gonna show up at my house and be like,
Mm.
no, ma'am. So in the midst of this, he's really showing me how important community is, godly community, godly friends, and really that what I'm doing, it matters, and not to let an impulse or spiritual attack keep me from doing what he's called me to do.
Mm. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. Absolutely. And just having, God speak to you with what you just shared as far as like restoration, renewal, community. You know what I mean? Like it is hard when you're so used to checking on others, but now it's like
Mhm.
leaning on that community. It's this year has been a year of first for me, trying new things, and letting other people come into your lives, like, and being transparent. That's beautiful right there. That's a release for you. You know what I mean? To like release and say, you know what, God, I'm going to open up a little bit more to people that I may not have opened up to before, and just let them um, come to me, because you never know
Mhm.
what can come out of it. So just surrounding yourself, like you said, with community is so important because, like I said earlier, the first thing that we may do is try to like be alone because nobody understands what we're going through. But even if they may not understand exactly what you may be going through or not walking in your shoes, they can still provide support within the community. So um, I wanted us to close. I didn't share this in the beginning, but I am a poet. I am an author. I'm an educator, and most recently, I'm a creative wellness practitioner. So I would like to close with a meditation. Um, so you can go ahead and close your eyes or lower your gaze while I share this guided meditation with you. Before we begin, you can go ahead and take a deep breath in and exhale out. One more time, take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale it out. Today, I am patient and calm. I am making the choice to be patient with myself, patient with others, and patient with life. I trust the process of life. I am loving the process of trust, of learning to cultivate patience so that I can show up as my best self no matter what life throws my way. I am becoming more calm and peaceful with every circumstance that tests my patience. I am treating every test and every stressor as an opportunity to practice and master the skills of patience. I trust God in the process. Everything unfolds and works out exactly as it's meant to in His perfect timing. My patience is growing more and more every day. I am accepting of the fact that some things just take a little longer and that everything may not occur on my timeline. So I surrender to rest and trust God in the process. His timeline is what is best for me. I am guided by His perfect timing in my life. So I am releasing the need to micromanage and control everything. I am no longer stressing about things outside of my control. Calm and patience are within me now. I accept God's timing and trust that He will fulfill all His promises in His perfect timing. I invite you to bring some awareness into your body by wiggling your fingers, by rotating your shoulders forward and backwards. Taking another deep breath in through your nose and exhaling it out. Now you can bring some awareness to your body and open your eyes. Thank you so much for joining us today. Before we end this call, Jakisha, please let us know how can we learn more about you and find out where to follow you.
You can follow me on YouTube. I have a channel called Encouragement Talks TV, and you can find me on Instagram and Facebook as Chop with Jam, or even as Jarkeisha McGahee on Facebook. That's where I am, and I like to go live. Y'all will see me. What you see here is what you're gonna see there. I'll say some. I'm very transparent, y'all. So I'll just say some stuff, and you'll be like, okay, this girl is like, crazy. But no, I'm like, there's nothing like, if you ask me, I will answer and say things. And it's just like when I'm saying, we all have a story, we all have something, we all have skeletons, we all have the things. And I probably have an example for something. But anyways, that's where you can find me on Instagram and all places at Chop with Jam, and on YouTube on Encouragement Talks TV.
Yes, please follow her. Please connect with her. Let's continue to build and join her community and our community. And thank you so much for joining our first episode. Come back again on episode 2. That will be on January 2nd at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to talk about grief, acceptance of grief, and grief and joy. So, yes, please follow us. And as I mentioned, I am a poet, I am an author. I love having affirmations. So I'll be sharing with you like a resource. I'm going to send to your email with our information that Jakisha just shared, as well as my own. So that way you can continue to connect with us. All right. Until next time, y'all, be blessed. Bye. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Jakisha. I think that is all. We will connect. I will text you soon.
Oh,
Okay.
and
And you
thank you
did.
for the invitation too.